Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our March webinar on IQ Release 2.9. I'm Andrea Easton, one of the Customer Success Managers here at Martello, and today I'm joined by Luke O'Keefe, our Customer Success Manager in Europe, and our Support Manager, Chris Millay. Chris is going to demonstrate the new SLA feature in version 2.9 and show you a new PowerShell script that is able to pull IQ notifications into Slack and Teams. It's all yours, Chris.
So IQ-centric user group this time. Basically what we're going to do is go over the new SLA feature that we've built into IQ. This is round one of the SLA feature. There are other improvements coming for that we're already planning out. So notifications in the recent past here quite often, especially on the support side, I've been getting questions about sending notifications into either Teams or Slack. So we happen to have a couple PowerShell scripts that were written. The first one was actually written by one of our customers, and he's no longer there anyway, but just because I still want to give him credit, he wrote it. And then we're going to do a spotlight on ServiceNow, kind of talk about what we do with ServiceNow, just so everyone has an idea what we do with that. And then if you want to try it out, we can go along that line too, just to kind of get further knowledge about our different integrations as we go through. And then of course, we'll wrap that up with a Q&A session. All right, so off to the lab, because the first part of this is all going to be in IQ. So we built a new SLA feature, and the SLAs are strictly for the services themselves. There's uptime for boards and for objects as we go through, but an SLA is an agreement on a particular service. So couple changes that we made with IQ in 2.9. The health rollup was kind of ambiguous. It basically was like a worst state, best case, but it was really just of the different perspectives that you had. We needed to fine tune that a little bit. So if I look at this particular service here, change state on me, go into details. The first thing you'll notice is that if you go into details, we've actually changed the health rollup. You can choose a health rollup to calculate based off the end user, the application, or the infrastructure. Felt this was important, so you can say, okay, look, since there's really just one SLA, not like those who are used to live maps where there was a service SLA, an end user, an application, and infrastructure. So there's 4 separate SLA calculations going on in SCOM. What we did here is we just kind of basically said, all right, here, we're going to do one SLA. It's the service agreement. You can decide which perspectives, the health of those, cause your SLA or your service as a whole to change state. This one's set to infrastructure because I really wanted it to be in a place where I needed it. It used to be yellow, but it actually changed state on me just now. Figures right as I'm starting something. So that's the first thing you'll notice, and that'll actually show you here. You'll see that some of these down here actually have reds in their application and their infrastructure, but yet the health of the service as a whole is green. The next thing you will do is actually come in here and configure the SLO settings. This is kind of important. Obviously, you have to be able to set your settings. I have this set to 80 on purpose, just because I wanted it to show up in black, and I'll kind of explain that in a moment. You can set a time period. So like, do you want it for a month, which is the default value? By the way, the default time frame or percentage is 99%. You can adjust that to 99.999, however you feel like you need to do there. The time period can be set to a month, a week, or a day. Obviously, we have to only do it on one set time zone. So being my service, it's here in Central US time. Also, you can toggle on and off business hours. So if you want it 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, then you can do that also. So we tried to do some of the same things that we did with other SLA services, especially those that we've done with our Live Maps products and those that are inside of SCOM. All right, so let's explain this column. So if you expand out, sometimes people don't see this right away, but if you zoom in and out of your browser, sometimes you'll get these extra columns. SLA column will show up. For those that have not breached, it'll be in black. That's why this 80.129% is currently in black. It hasn't crossed the 80% threshold. But if you have breached your SLA, then it'll show up in red. Let's really just kind of give you that quick, easy indication of where you're at on that one. Drilling into a service. When you first drill into the service, usually you're at the members tab. However, if I come over here to the SLA tab, you can see the feature as a whole. Now, a couple key points in here. I have it set for a month, so I'm currently March 2020. I can scroll back and forth in between my months, so I can look at previous months. shows you what time zone you're in, and what is your business day that you've set. If you set it 24 hours, then that doesn't actually show up. It just shows you the time zone. We have a graph that shows you any kind of outages that you have. So you see my downtime is 9 hours. I've already gone down today, so I'm at 24.4 hours here. We'll also show you different parts that are actually causing your outage. So without me clicking anywhere, I can see where I've had some failures. Off to the side here, we'll show you your SLA, what you're currently at, what you have your goal set to, how much downtime, what you've allowed for downtime, and how much time you have till breach. And so there's a little bar here that'll actually kind of drain down as you go through. So I only have 14.9 minutes left. I probably should breach actually during this meeting. So that's kind of interesting. I didn't even think about trying to do that, but it just happened to go that way. Now, if you click on any one of these and show the actual day, it will show you what has actually caused that outage, where the failure is. So as I go through and click on different days or different parts, you can see what has caused the outage for that day or that time frame. One key note that I didn't really say about this graph up here, because I'm at a month, it's 1 through 31. If you're at a week, then it shows the 7 days. If you're at a day, then it shows 24 hours. So the time frame itself that you get is going to be based off what your calculations are set for. If I go back in time, so I'm going to go back to February, you can see what has caused my outages during that time, but you can also see the SLA bar as it goes down as I was trailing down, the gaps in the middle. If it's not self-evident, that would be my Saturday and Sunday that I didn't calculate for, so I'm only looking at Monday through Friday. One word of note, and I'm going to go back a couple months here. So for those that are deploying this for the very first time, the historical components down at the bottom, we start calculating the moment you upgrade to 2.9 or higher. So we don't have any way to figure out what components were causing an SLA impact prior to that. So this was December. This was prior to the initial release of 2.9 and before I even had any kind of beta in my lab. So that's why I don't see any SLA components. On first install, you will not actually see anything here. It's going to take it a little bit of time as we start calculating, but basically you can kind of say from this point forward, from the day you upgrade on, you'll see that kind of indication of what's causing your outages at different points in time. Make note of that. So if you first install it and get to this part, then you're like, hey, I don't see anything. That's the reason why. Just give it some time. You'll start to see stuff. All right, so this is kind of the SLA feature as it stands right now. It was developed, we actually needed it for a few of our customers that had requested it. We've already got feedback from them on what they want to see. There's some things that I can tell you that we're looking to do. I can't tell you exactly how we're going to do it, it's specific. So right now it's just an SLA on a particular service. We are looking at some kind of reporting feature that allows you to actually print off some of these things. And there's been some feedback on changing the graphs to show more of an uptime versus a downtime perspective. So that's a couple little bits of feedback that we're looking to implement in some way. I don't have the particulars of those yet. Obviously, I would like to get feedback from you guys. If you have IQ now and need help upgrading, then I can assist you with that too. We can go from there. All right, that was the SLA feature. The next thing I want to do is go into settings. Like I said before, I've had requests about posting things to Teams or to Slack. And somebody actually wrote a PowerShell script and I adapted it and worked with it. So anyone who wants to do this, notifications are going to be on a per board or a per service setting. It's basically a notification of when things change state. By the way, you can do the same thing with email. It's just this is geared toward Slack integrations. And what I'm showing you today, you can actually adapt. Seeing the script, if you wanted to, it's a PowerShell script. So if you wanted to do other things, feel free to adapt it to your purposes. It's just our PowerShell integration that is sending information to Teams or to Slack. All of the possibilities are already in the PowerShell script, so that should help you along the way. And we can kind of go for there. Anyone who has IQ automatically gets the PowerShell integration as part of that. Figured I would go ahead and explain. The PowerShell integration is an action type, so it's not something that you're pulling data from or gathering health states from. It is an action type, which is a notifications, basically. So if you come to support.martellotech.com and into the knowledge base, I could have also done a search. Down here at the bottom on the how-to for IQ, you'll notice that I have a Teams notification and a Slack notification. So I'll go into Slack first. It kind of gives you, hey, here's the purpose. This is about what it's going to look like, how to implement it. You can click here on the download the script. It'll actually, I'm going to open this up in basically a notepad here within the browser. Key thing for this one, and it's the same thing that's going to go with Teams. You will need to follow documentation for Slack or Teams, either way, and create a webhook for the channel that you want to send the information to. You can have multiple scripts. If you need different channels to go for different things, then you will have to create multiple webhooks. You can actually copy this PowerShell script and create copies of it for each one and have it in the scripts folder. I'll show you where to put that here in a second, but basically you'll need to add in your webhook here. Another key thing on this one is the logging. So if you want to, you can actually create some logging and actually have these things save if there's problems and enter in a path for where you would like to put that. When we create the script, you're actually going to put in a user. The user that we create and then has to have read-write access to this particular file folder in order for it to do the logging. So it's not going to write it automatically, unless of course your app pool user happens to be a local admin, then I found that works sometimes also. Depends on security policies. The script itself is pretty easy to follow for Slack. It's basically going to trigger some stuff or trigger based on either board state changes or alerts. So we can actually do either one of those two, and then it'll create an output to the channel. If I go back into, it was the Teams one that he wrote. Post to Teams is the same thing. Craig, he's the guy who actually wrote this one initially. I did adapt this a little bit and cleaned it up because I will tell you that he had some other titles and stuff that went to added links to different integrations and things that they had so they can have direct access to, in their case, PRTG or to Surewell, or so you can add other things. And I'm going to actually talk about this one just a bit. So in this one, you actually build a JSON script in order to have your message populate. So let's go out of this for now. So you've kind of seen the scripts. I wanted to go over that to add. Once you are done with the scripts, you've added your webhook, and that's kind of the most important part. You'll need to save that file into where you have IQ installed. In this case, it's going to be program files, Civision IQ, PS scripts. You can have multiple scripts in here. That's not a problem. When you add them in here, it may not show up in your integration list right away, or when we start to tell it which script we want to use right away. I found that if you just give it a little time, we have to go through an app pull recycle, it'll show up, or you can stop and restart the app pull. That's how to force it to show up. All right, once you have that in place, now we can go back here. To add an integration for any one of these, all I have to do is come down to the integrations. I can tell it that I want to add PowerShell, and then it's a matter of filling out the information as far as what parts you want to use. The scripts here, this is the part I was talking about, it may or may not show up right away. So you can either give it a little bit of time, or if you want to, you can stop and restart your app pool, and then you should start to see this information as far as the scripts that you want to have in here. Key thing about this to note is once the script is there and we see it, you can edit the script all you want, and you don't necessarily have to stop and restart the app pool. You can leave those alone and they'll be in there as you need. I already have my post to Slack or post to Teams, either way. You'll notice here that I actually have, the name is going to be key so you know exactly which ones you're doing. I'm running it as my app pool user in this case. I found that seems to be the easiest. This is supposed to be what we're running the PowerShell scripts to run as. Okay, so let's go into boards. Once you have the webhook, once you have the script in place, once you've added it as a integration, you can add multiple ones as integrations. You can now come in here into your boards, and I want a particular one. If I come in and I edit and I go to notifications, I actually meant to have these deleted before I started this process. Key is you're adding the trigger. Trigger is going to be board shared. These scripts are not made to handle that, although they could be adapted for that. They also can't handle the new incident for a board, although we could probably adapt for that too. For me, it's basically board state change or new alert. So what you're going to do is you're going to select what you want the notification on, and then your action. So in my case, I can, post to Slack, and then I hit the plus button to make sure that it's already here. And if I want to, I can do another one. So in this case, I can say post to Teams. My Teams 2 is the one that I actually have working the way I want it to today. So you can have multiple notifications, it doesn't matter. You will notice that I cannot necessarily add. So if I do a board state change again, as you've already selected them, you won't be able to select them again. You've already got one notification. It's a double thing doing, actually having more. So once I've added them in here, I'm pretty well done on actually having my notifications. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fire off and change a state. We'll give it a little bit of time. I'll move this over and kind of do like this. So here are the notifications into Slack. Now this is the basic ones that I've set up. You'll notice that as I've changed from critical to healthy, I will actually create either a red bar or a green bar. You can play with the settings in there and adjust how you want the messaging to look. It actually tells you that it's changed state and has a link back to IQ and specifically the board in question. If I scroll up, it doesn't look very well, but this is an example of an alerts. The problem with my alert one right now is that it's the same alert over and over and over again with the same name. So that's why it looks the way it does. But you get the idea of what it's going to follow through into IQ. In Teams, it's a little different because you're building a JSON, and I can actually move this over here. I've done the same thing with the reds and the greens as far as the health state of when it's changing. State is healthy, board's change state, and then you also have a go to board here. So you can actually tell it and click on it, and it'll open up directly to the board in question that has changed state for you. Now, the interesting thing about Teams, while I wait for that notification to actually publish, I should actually see it in here since I've told it to change state on me. When you do Teams, you actually build the JSON. You have to actually create the message card the way you want it. With Slack, it was very simple. Hey, just here's what you need to do. Boom, it creates it for you. It was a very easy thing to do. And I'm pretty sure that you can go through and find ways to actually adapt the messaging in Slack itself. But I found this right here when I was playing around with this message card playground. I found this to be very helpful because it does give you samples that you can actually go through and see what you're at the JSON. So you can do approvals in here, or the weather one I found interesting. It's just I figured I would share this out with you guys while I was playing around with it. So if you want to adapt your message more, then feel free to do that. It's just a matter of formatting the JSON so that it produces the message the way you want. It's going to be whether it's a message card or adaptive card. So you can be creative on how you want this to look, is really what I'm trying to say. It's just a PowerShell script that's creating JSON to produce the message as you see. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Have I got my notification yet? There he is. So this is the one that just changed to critical, and I should have, my critical over here. So I've created the board or created the notification as they've gone out. Hopefully that part is helpful to you guys. Let's go back here. All right, Spotlight. We're going to talk about ServiceNow just a little bit. I know some of you guys have ServiceNow. Some of you are thinking about it. Some of you don't. For those that are aware of what we used to have in the ServiceNow integration with live maps, what we do with IQ is completely different. We don't do the exact same thing. In fact, we don't create the business services up into ServiceNow like we did with live maps. What we do with ServiceNow with IQ is basically we start to grab all the objects from your CMDB. We also grab all the relationship data, so that way we can understand how things are connected together. We'll go ahead and grab any of the incident table, so we can see all of the incidents. We also have the ability to create and update an incident. That's kind of key on how we do things within IQ. All right, for those that want to implement and deploy it, the first thing I tell you is make sure you read the installation guide first. Don't just think that you can go in and even if you have the license for it, just turn around and start adding in the information into IQ. It's not going to work. You actually have to go to the store. It's the ServiceNow store, search for the Civision IQ app, add the app. There's also some permissions that you need to set so that we can do what we need to do. We'll actually add a user into the mix. You'll need to make sure that that user has the permissions necessary for us to pull objects and to create the incidents that we want to do. So that's always going to be key in this particular case. And we'll go back to the lab. All right, we'll start with the home. And I will start in my components section. So I'm going to kind of isolate this down to ServiceNow. So we grab stuff out of your CMDB. That allows us to have all of the objects that are in here. If I click on any one object, I'll be able to see the raw properties of it. If I want to, I can go into more details. That will actually allow me to see any incidents that are related to that particular object. And I can go to source. Go to source will open up ServiceNow, allow you to log in and go directly to that particular object. If I go to groups and services, which by the way, I can see the same things I'm going to see in groups and services over on the component side. And if I look at ServiceNow here, these are going to be any of the business services that you've created. So let's just do a search quick. Active Directory. Again, I can see the raw properties of this if I want to. I'll open it up. I can see any of the members that are a part of Active Directory. Key thing here about ServiceNow is not a monitoring tool, so I have no way to grab a health state directly from ServiceNow. So I just have the objects, and I can also see any of the incidents that are created for those objects. Now, if I go to source, that will open up ServiceNow. I've already logged in prior to this, so that's why it's actually going directly to it. And then actually let me see that business service and any of the objects that are related to or are part of that particular business service in ServiceNow. Now that I have the objects, you can actually add these objects into your boards and services to allow you to see any incidents that may be created in ServiceNow directly, meaning that it's something that somebody's gone into ServiceNow, created an incident, and is on an object itself. So you have the ability to pin these into your boards and services. That's kind of why we want to do that. Later on, we're talking about other things to help you correlate objects that are not part of ServiceNow, or at least how we've pulled them into from other monitoring systems, I should say. Let me go back to home. Incidents are also going to be able to be grabbed from ServiceNow. So if I look at any one of these, I can actually go in, see exactly when it was created, look at the raw details, any of the raw properties itself. If it's one that we can go to the related components in IQ. That'll actually go to the ServiceNow component. And then I can go to source here, which will actually open up that particular incident directly into ServiceNow. We're keeping that relationship together so we can see how things go and how things were created. All right, so that allows me to have the objects. Like I said, you can take any of those objects that you have and I can highlight them and I can pin them into a service. I can also do this to be a membership rule if I need to. I can pin them into a board. And now it's just one of those things where it's nice to have the objects that you have from your monitoring systems and the objects you have from ServiceNow to give you that complete picture. Now, alerts are another thing. So we have the ability to create incidents and actually update incidents. So let's say this search for Active Directory, this happens to be related to one particular issue that's going on at this particular moment. I have some alerts from SCOM, some from PRTG, maybe the one from Office 365. This is one incident that's going on. If I need to, I can actually click on several different alerts, and from different monitoring systems. And now I can go through the process of actually creating or actually linking it to an existing incident or updating the incident if I need to. Go to source, basically allows me to go to the ServiceNow. Description is what you're going to be needing to put in here. The component that it's related to, I'm just going to grab one. DCO2 sounds like a good one in this case. Resolve alert when incident is closed. This is one of those things where as we're looking at the incident, once we notice that the incident has actually been resolved, we'll go back into the original monitoring systems and actually close out those alerts. So you don't have to worry about the fact that they have to be closed out manually. We'll go back and do that for you. So if I go in here and create, that'll go ahead and create this ticket or create this incident, and I'll be able to see that. Now, These are all going to be related to different objects that are in your different monitoring systems. So if you happen to have those in a board or a service, and I wish I would have thought about that beforehand because I didn't create an example here, but if I come into my boards and I go into, might be able to find it here. So my incidents for Office 365, I should have that one from Office 365 that I have in here. It wouldn't matter whether I actually have, so like my members in here are none of the Office 360 or none of the ServiceNow objects in this particular one. But because I created the incident and I linked in an object from Office 365 in this case, I will actually see that particular object or that particular incident in this board. So as long as we've created the linkage, then we already know what objects are related and we can go ahead and add the incidents that are in here. That's kind of why this created by Civision actually exists. So you can see the ones that are actually pulled from those that are natural incidents that were created through ServiceNow are the ones that we've actually linked because of our ability to create or update a particular incident. Another thing that's possible within a board is that you could go through the process of taking any one of these and configure incident automation. That allows me to come in here and say, okay, I want this to be related to ServiceNow. I can let it go ahead and create an incident on its own or a number, give it a description, related to a set component. And then when the board changes state, we'll go ahead and create an incident automatically in ServiceNow. And we'll attach all of the alerts that are created within that board at that moment. So it's kind of grouping everything together. Same thing's true. We follow the same rules as far as resolving the alert. So when the incident is closed out, we'll go back and we'll close out all the alerts that were created on that ticket at that moment. We allow you to kind of flow that way also. We have the incident automation going on. All right, that is pretty much what we have for ServiceNow, allowing you to have the objects from ServiceNow, whether it's just anything in your CMDB, it'd be your business services. We'll look at the incidents, allow you to create incidents, update incidents, allow you to do incident automation on our boards and services so that when things change state, you can automatically create an incident. All right, that's it. This was kind of a quick user group. We'll probably have another session in May. We're kind of doing these every other month. If there's any topics that you guys would like us to cover, please let us know. With that, I wish everyone a good day. Thank you very much.